Guys, let's move to our sleepers. DBro, who you got?
Well, I'm going to lead this off with the guy that I've talked about since early in the offseason, and nothing's changed to push me off him. That's Jaleel McLaughlin. And I put this out after the drafting of Bo Nix. He's going to get 120 screen targets. I don't think that he gets that, but he might not be far off, people. You look at Jaleel McLaughlin, nothing's changed in this backfield. Yes, they drafted Audric Estime in the 5th round. I don't care because he's not going to play passing downs. Yes, Javonte Williams is still there. Again, I'm not worried about that. He's not going to play most of the passing downs. What I care about McLaughlin is, one, the targets, and as well as the efficiency. We've seen this iteration, or at least previous iterations of a Sean Payton offense. They use running backs in the passing game a ton. That's going to happen again this year. And Jaleel McLaughlin has been uber efficient. What do we see last year, boys? 14th in explosive run rate amongst 68 qualifying running backs. 5th in missed tackles forced per attempt. 4th in yards after contact per attempt. Oh, and guess what? On top of that, 4th in yards per route run. So all he needs is more opportunity. And if he eats into the red zone role in this offense with a quarterback that we're not projecting, nobody's out there projecting that Bo Nix is going to be stretching the field and going deep a ton. Okay, then that means a lot of McLaughlin time. And again, we talked about Jerry Jeudy earlier in this show. He's gone as well. Targets got to go somewhere, baby, and I think McLaughlin's going to eat them this year. Staying with, or at least getting back on the rookie train, Lad McConkey. I got to talk about him here because, again, we're talking about passing attacks to buy into that where there are really freaking good quarterback play. Justin Herbert, we can all debate about how much volume is available for the Chargers passing attack. We cannot question Justin Herbert's talent, as well as we can't question Lad McConkey's talent. He got the draft capital. He tested fantastically. He crushed every part of the pre-draft process. And if you look at his final season at Georgia, 98th percentile in receiving grade, 98th percentile versus single coverage. I'm not telling you that he's going to go out, he's going to get 140, 150 targets. But can he get 110? Can he get 120? Can he outpace where people are talking about him in the wide receiver 4 to 5 realm? I absolutely believe that. The touchdowns and the volume surprise in an offense he's competing with targets against who? Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, who couldn't earn volume or do anything with it last year, Will Dissly, Hayden Hurst, DJ Chark. Yeah.
You didn't mention Alex Erickson?
No,
my long-lost brother?
I figured you were going to,
my
mention
cousin?
the family member. I mean, exactly. You got to bring up the cousin. I'm just going to leave that for you to do, Erickson, because I'm actually kind of surprised you're not wearing your Bolts jersey on the show today. But, Erickson's notwithstanding, the last guy I will mention here, another rookie, is Jonathon Brooks. RB40 and ECR? Come on, man. Give me a break. Chuba Hubbard, this coaching staff has no ties to Chuba Hubbard or Miles Sanders. The guy that even gave Miles Sanders his contract, yes, I know Dave Tepper shelled out the quiche, but outside of that, Dan Morgan, he didn't give that contract to Miles Sanders last year. This coaching staff has talked about they want to run the ball. I'm not telling you that Jonathon Brooks starts off the season getting bell cow usage and 20 to 25 touches a game. I don't think that. But can he be a guy that, considering this type of price point, you draft him as an RB3, hell, an RB4 in some drafts, and he's carrying you down the back half of the season coming off the ACL, I think that absolutely can happen. The coaching staff has already talked about they want to use him creatively. They've already talked about they believe in the run game. They're going to try to make things easier for Bryce Young. If the offensive line plays a lot better, we've already seen in iterations of Dave Canellis's imprint on an offense. Last year, Rachaad White, 7th in opportunity share. Canellis the year before that as the QB coach standing on the sidelines in Seattle, watching Kenneth Walker ranked 13th in opportunity share. Jonathon Brooks, if he takes over this backfield in short order or earlier than even what I'm projecting, he's going to crush his ADP.
I think with the Brooks one, makes sense why he's going lower. I think the injury, folks are assuming he's not going to be at full strength to start the year. And so you're drafting a guy who's unproven to what was, one of the worst offenses in the league a year ago, and you don't expect to get much production early on in the season. It's just, with rookies, it sometimes sets them back if they are, kind of injured early in camp and stuff like that. So the case for him I mean, you're listing him as a sleeper, right? You're not saying he's a guy that you have to go out and draft as an RB1.
Agreed.
So the upside is there. So I think that's fair, but I do understand the early ADP at least, and I kind of expect that to go up. They did also sign, or reports that they're going to sign, Rashad Penny came out earlier today. So
another guy that can't stay healthy and was buried on the Eagles.
It's another back in that backfield, not scared off from
so worried about Penny.
I do think it's interesting that right after they drafted him, they signed another running back. Like I know he has a connection with Canales, but it's just a matter of
that could be more damning for Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders for keeping 100 here.
It's just the question mark is just what is the timeline actually going to be? Like, is it week 1? Is he actually ready? And what does ready mean? Is it like he's out there but he doesn't look effective? Because ideally for me as like a fantasy manager, be like I want him to be kind of in more of a committee to start the year, make his price suppressed. But then when he actually takes on like the bell cow role, like he's actually returning from his ACL, like he feels like he's effective. Because the last thing you want is for him to get bell cow usage, but then he's not efficient because he's not fully back. And this offense is kind of still finding its footing. So I think the Brooks timeline, kind of trying to read what the team is doing, will be a really interesting, debate and dichotomy like during this draft season.
Well, a different injury, but like think about Tony Pollard, right? He said that he wasn't healthy until week 11, and so he hurt a lot of fantasy teams in the first part of the season when he wasn't fully healthy, but he was healthy enough to be on the field. He just wasn't healthy enough to be himself. So just something to keep in mind with Brooks. I do want to ask you, Erickson, on Ladd, like as somebody who watched a lot of Greg Roman offenses in Baltimore,
I figured
they do still throw. like I'm more worried about what Roman does for Herbert's fantasy value, but for Herbert's top target, that they're going to throw enough that if he's the clear number one guy, and again, like to DBro's point, who's fighting him for that number one spot, and you're getting those passes, even if they're fewer, you're getting them from a guy like Justin Herbert, and you're as talented as we all think Ladd McConkey is, that's just really exciting to me. So I really like that as a sleeper, even as a rookie. What do you think about that, Erickson?
I mean, if anyone's going to break Puka Nakua's week 1 target record, it would be Ladd McConkey. For a rookie, I'm just like, it probably will because the offense stops it. Like the counting stats in the offense are going to stop Ladd McConkey. But from a market share perspective, like we're going to look up every single week, 35% target share, 40% target share. Because whenever Justin Herbert drop backs the throw, it's going to be to McConkey like every other time. So if the passing attempts, the total counting stat, like that's the one thing that McConkey might not get from a ceiling perspective. It's just like the total counting stats aren't there because the offense just doesn't throw the ball enough. But from an efficiency standpoint, from a touchdown perspective, like he's going to check off every single box. So I love the McConkey pick.
I think you could see a very similar, eerily similar stat line between two guys that I've talked about on this show. Ladd McConkey, I won't be shocked, and this guy finished as wide receiver 31 last year. I won't be shocked if he ends up with a very Zay Flowers-esque stat line to end his rookie season. Which here, if he ends up as wide receiver 31, he's still going to be a really, really good value because he's being drafted in a lot of spots and ranked as a low-end wide receiver 4, high-end 5.
I think that's a good comp in terms of what the stat line might look like, going about it a different way, but kind of getting to that same endpoint by the end of the season. Erickson, give me your sleepers.
Yeah, so we've got 3 sleeper running backs. I'm going to start with Roschon Johnson for the Chicago Bears. Again, bringing back to the fact that a lot of teams have not used DeAndre Swift as a goal line running back. So I mentioned that could be Caleb Williams that really calls his own name near the goal line, or it could be Roschon, 219 pounds. He could have been the goal line back last year. He had 6 carries inside the 5-yard line. The only other running back that had more was Deontay Foreman, who's now on the Cleveland Browns. Khalil Herbert is in a contract year. He was not drafted by the current head coach, by the current regime, by the current anything. Like, he's just on the roster. So even though I think Khalil Herbert is still a really good running back, the Bears would not stop talking about how much they love Roschon last year. And that reminds me of how much Sean McVay loved Kyren Williams. But what happened? He got hurt. Last year, Roschon Johnson got a concussion that he had to miss several weeks. It wasn't one of these, you missed the first week, you're clear protocol, you're good to go. He had to miss a lot of time, and I think that set him back when the Bears really wanted to unleash him as their 3-down running back. So, yes, they obviously brought DeAndre Swift in, but I don't know. Like, DeAndre Swift, I just feel like he's been kind of rubbing teams the wrong way. Like, with the Eagles last year, like, they didn't use him at the goal line. He was pretty effective to start the year, but then as the offense kind of sputtered out, so did DeAndre Swift, and then they didn't re-sign him. And then instead, they signed a massive contract to Saquon Barkley. And they're like, all right, Swift, you can walk. Like, you can go sign with the Chicago Bears. And he did. So I think that obviously Swift being there keeps Roschon Johnson's ADP low, but Swift also stayed healthy for the first time in his career last season. So I'm very skeptical that he can do that again, especially if he's seeing a lot of early down touches. So I like Roschon Johnson as a potential sleeper, especially if he carves out that goal line role in a Bears offense that I'm at least excited about. Next guy here is Chase Brown for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals were the other team that we were kind of waiting for the pin to drop. Okay, they draft this running back here with Zach Moss, but they actually didn't really add anything else to that backfield. So it's really the Chase Brown versus Zach Moss show, which I'm enjoying. I'm thinking about all the debates going into the year when they ultimately just end up signing some other running back off the street to be the RB1. But until now, I think it is the Chase Brown versus Zach Moss debate. And I'm very much on the Chase Brown side of things. Look, last year, in a parallel universe where Jonathan Taylor doesn't get injured or doesn't hold out, Zach Moss never even sniffs the field. Like, he's a total afterthought. And before he was traded to the Colts, Zach Moss was nothing. Like, he had no dynasty value. He had no value whatsoever. Nobody was talking about Zach Moss. Like, we were hyping up other Colts running backs when it looked like Zach Moss maybe had a potential to be the running back after the JT news came out that he was going to hold out and miss time. But ultimately, it worked in his favor, and he did deliver with a couple big games. But after that, he really sputtered out when he got other opportunities down the stretch. And I think it's actually interesting to bring this up here. So in his last start, it actually came against the Cincinnati Bengals. He played 84% of the snaps. He had 13 carries for 28 yards, for 2.2 yards per carry. I just think that this is the classic like plotter who is Zach Moss versus like the super explosive running back named Chase Brown, who posted one of Next Gen Stats' fastest ball carrier metrics last year on touchdown reception. So I think if the Bengals are really looking for more juice at the running back position, I think it's Chase Brown, who he carried the workload in college. Like, it's not like this guy, we can only give him 10 touches a week. Like, no, like he can take on a bigger workload. So I think that Chase Brown offers a lot of upside, especially if he ends up being the RB1 for the Cincinnati Bengals, an offense that overall I'm just super excited about with Joe Burrow back under center and healthy. And then last but not least is Blake Corum, rookie running back. Look, he's the ultimate handcuff to Kyren Williams. It's just a bet on, I don't think Kyren Williams can stay healthy all year long. You know, seeing a very high snap share, 80% snap share, one of the highest snap shares, only behind, I think, Christian McCaffrey last season. And they talked about Blake Corum basically when they drafted him. He's the carbon copy of Kyren Williams. They're like, we love Kyren Williams so much, we're going to draft his clone in Blake Corum. So if anything were to happen to Kyren, I think we would be like the next week in the weekly rankings. Oh, week 10's coming along. Blake Corum's going to start. Oh, he's a top 12 running back. Just like that. So I just think that type of upside, especially with Corum, who just is a running back for me, that he can do it all. Like, he's solid. I wouldn't say that he's elite at anything, but he's got really good vision, decent size. And I just think that he would absolutely go nuclear if there was an injury to Blake or to Kyren Williams ahead of him on the depth chart. So for that, I think that he has enough upside for me to be a sleeper that I really want to target.
DBro, who's your favorite of these three that Erickson just laid out? Roschon Johnson, Chase Brown, Blake Corum.
I think right now, considering the constitution of things, it's probably Chase Brown, just because I think that he can have the most standalone value just inherently, because again, I'm not a Zach Moss truther. I never have been. I don't plan on being one for 2024. I thought they were going to draft. I was with Erickson. I thought Cincinnati was going to take a shot on one of these running backs on day 3 even. And they didn't do that. Now, who knows if, the guy they wanted didn't fall to them and stuff. The Zach Moss signing just in general felt like one of those. And we see those every single year right before the NFL draft. It's like, let's sign somebody in case it's the break glass in case of emergency. Well, the emergency happened, and apparently Cincinnati's going to have to break the glass. But maybe it's Chase Brown stepping forward and not Zach Moss. And, oh, dear Lord, just because I said that, I'm never going to hear the end from Mike Mayer about Chase Brown.
Let's wrap up with our deep sleepers. We'll just do one each here. Erickson, who is your deep sleeper?
It's the Green Bay Packers tight end 1, and his name is not Luke Musgrave. It's Tucker Kraft for me.
Yes!
Last time we saw these guys play, the snap share was 85% for Tucker Kraft, and Musgrave was at 28%. And every other ranking ADP I've seen is Luke Musgrave clearly ahead of Tucker Kraft. Luke Musgrave was drafted ahead of Tucker Kraft, but Tucker Kraft, when he got the opportunity last year to be the starter, he was better. He was better than Luke Musgrave. I thought he was better than Luke Musgrave before the draft happened last year. And I get draft capital dictates early season opportunity, and that's what the Packers did. Luke Musgrave opened up as the starter, but I think Kraft was better. I still think Kraft is better. So Kraft singles, baby. 2024, let's go.
I'm fully with you. I love Kraft, and I know that DBro talked about that a lot last year as well. So we're definitely, I think, in lockstep on that one. DBro, who's your deep sleeper?
I love the Kraft call here, especially. Yeah, I mean, I said it as soon as he was drafted. I was like, this is what's going to happen. It's the same thing as the Ravens situation before. I said, look, your Hayden Hurst is Luke Musgrave. Your real guy, the Mark Andrews here, is Tucker Kraft. So I'm all on board with
Kraft
that.
singles, baby.
Love it. I love it. For all those lactose intolerant or not, you better take your pills because Kraft is coming, baby. But getting back on the rookie train here, my deep sleeper, and again, if we're not buying into the rushing attack for Cincinnati, let's go with the aerial attack, baby. It's Jermaine Burton. Talked about him all rookie and dynasty season. I'm drafting him everywhere right now, and I'm going to keep drafting him in redraft season. Jermaine Burton's got the talent, and I'm not going to discuss anything off field and stuff like that. You know, you can argue with a wall or your cat or whoever you want to go talk to about that. But the talent is real for Jermaine Burton. The Cincinnati Bengals put third-round capital behind his name and said, we are totally fine with that. T. Higgins, I still don't think is a lock to sit here and make or be with this team in week one. And even if he is, Jermaine Burton starting in 3 wide receiver sets. Cincinnati uses 11 personnel at a top 5 clip. They do that every single year. That's not changing this year. Jermaine Burton is a stud. I mean, literally, you just go down his ledger as far as statistics go. He was 77th in separation percentage last year, 90th percentile in receiving grade against single coverage. The guy is a stud, and if he'd have had better quarterback play in his final season at Alabama, the counting stats would have been even better. And if you want to talk about just the physical acumen and the talent alone, he should have gone, if off the field stuff was not even in the equation, he should have gone second round of the NFL draft, and he would have been in the first round conversation. I fully believe that just based off of his talent. So you're telling me that this player is currently being drafted and probably will continue unless there's a T. Higgins move that is made, continue to be drafted outside the top 125, 150 players. Hell, he's even ranked right now outside of the top 175 per ECR. I'm going to draft a ton of Jermaine Burton this year.
I think too, something I was looking at when it came to Burton was, so he had been training with TJ Houshmandzadeh, someone that the Bengals organization trusts. And I think that he probably had some influence on, hey, like, you can trust in going after Jermaine Burton. I know that he's had some off the field concerns, but there was a trust component to this that the Bengals still felt like, hey, maybe we can risk that he falls into day 3, given that his draft stock had kind of fallen. They could maybe take a risk with like, no, we got to take him in round 3. Like, we can't risk losing out on the talent, even amid some of these off the field concerns. So again, this guy could have gone even earlier if there weren't these concerns. So I think that it fits like a glove with this offense for Joe Burrow, Jermaine Burton. I love the call.
Did anybody see the video of Zach Taylor when they made that selection? If y'all haven't seen this, anybody watching this on YouTube, if you haven't seen that video, it's worth a Google. Go watch the video of when the Cincinnati Bengals selected Jermaine Burton. Zach Taylor is pulling his best, like Brad Holmes, like smashing the desk, like freaking out, man.